You're listening to the weekly Parsha Podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5785, 2024. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayera, and this week's Parsha Podcast is dedicated anonymously, and our sponsor has asked that I make a certain request. The request is that anyone who listens to the podcasts and benefits from the Torah that we share here should also consider sponsoring a podcast and reach out to me. You can reach me at arigoldwag@gmail.com. So I'd like to share with you something, and before we look at some stuff inside, we're going to look at a Midrash, and we're going to look at the Psukim in Yeshaya, Perek Lamed Gimel. But before we do, so I'd just like to point out that our Parsha is an incredible moment in time, and I've spoken about this in previous years. It's also in my Sefer. Avraham Avinu is being told that he's about to have Yitzchak. Sarah Imenu is going to find it out as well. As a team, they together will have a child who's going to be the beginning of the Jewish people, Yitzchak. They're going to laugh. A woman who no longer was able to have kids, according to some opinions in Chazal, she didn't even have a womb. She has a child. The Jewish people begin. But what's amazing about it is that there are cataclysmic events that occur at the same exact moment. The same angels that come to inform Avraham and Sarah about the child that will be born to them a year henceforth. Those same angels go down to Sodom and Amora, and they destroy Sodom and Amora, transform an area which was lush and beautiful and blessed into an area that till today is salty and destroyed and really uninhabitable. And at the same exact moment as well, Lot takes his two daughters and conceived at that same time. So if you think about it, Yitzchak, Amon and Moav all have the same conception day, perhaps the same birthday. It all happened at the same time, the same moment. Amon and Moav, two nations that ultimately had certain characteristics of stone themselves. They were unwilling to give any bread and water to the Jewish people as they passed through, coming back to the land of Israel. Amon was constantly, as the Midrash points out, constantly there at the side of the Jewish people to cause us pain when we weren't doing what's right. But Amon and Moav, Am Yisrael, and ultimately Moav would have a child named Rus. From Moav would come Rus, and Rus would be the great-grandmother of David hamelech, King David. So all kinds of interesting things were starting at the very moment, the very same moment. Destruction of Sodom at the same moment as well. And a new epoch in the annals of mankind was beginning. So with that introduction, I'd like to share with you a Midrash, but the Midrash is based on the Psukim in Yeshaya. In chapter 33, it quotes a pasuk in Pasuk Yudalid, verse 14. And just a little context here before I want to read to you the Psukim inside. It's really quite remarkable what's going on here. Chizkiyahu hamelech, Hezekiah, he was surrounded by the Melech Ashur. The Syrian king had sent his legions to destroy Jerusalem, to besiege Jerusalem. Sounds very much like today. The Iranians today are surrounding Israel, fighting for Al-Aqsa, for Yerushalayim. Al-Aqsa, by the way, means, or Al-Quds means Hamakom HaKadosh, the holy place, Quds, Kadosh. Al-Aqsa means the farthest. And so there was this kind of siege, just as we have today. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was about to do an incredible nes, an incredible miracle. And basically, as Chizkiyahu HaMelech would be sleeping at night, all of the legions of Ashur, of Assyria, they suddenly, I don't remember, I'm not holding in this well enough, I don't remember if they were destroyed or they ran away, but there was an intense turnaround at that moment. Chizkiyahu had the potential to be Melech HaMoshiach, to be the king, the Messiah. It wasn't to be for whatever reasons. But in the midst of this, Yeshaya HaNavi tells us an amazing thing. He talks about the contrast between the fear of those who sin, of those who do not do the will of Hashem, who defy Hashem, as opposed to the hope, different kind of fear, as we'll see in the Midrash, of those who do the will of Hashem, the hope of those who do the will of Hashem for reward in that moment. So just think about this as we're reading it, in a time of din, in a time of judgment, times like we live in today, in times where there are cataclysmic events about to happen, right? Crazy things are going on everywhere. Who knows where things will go? Who knows? Trump reelected. Who knows what's going to happen with Putin and China and North Korea, Iran, all these places, all these things. Jews everywhere under siege, not just in Eretz Yisrael, in Amsterdam and in France, and even in college campuses in America. What's going to be, right? What happens in a time of din? How do we approach a time of din? How do we approach a time of judgment? And what's the difference between those who are afraid of destruction versus those who are afraid because they don't know what the reward will look like, as we'll see? So I'm going to read to you here from Yeshaya a bit, and then we're going to read the Midrash, a beautiful Midrash. And interestingly, we'll see that what happened in the time of Yeshaya Hanavi and Chizkiyahu hamelech, that occurrence repeats itself in the future time when Moshiach arrives, and there's this dual fear. We're going to see. Let's examine this together. Those who are distant and those who are near, I want you to hear. I want you to understand my power, says Hashem. Pachadu b'tzion, and this is our main verse. Okay, so focus in on this verse. Pachadu b'tzion chatoim. In Zion, in Jerusalem, in Israel, those who sinned were afraid. Those who are chanefim, which we'll see in the Midrash, means that they denied God's existence. They were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. They served idolatry. They shook. They were worried. They were scared. Mi yagur lanu eishei chela. Who can protect us from the fire, the consuming fire? Mi yagur lanu megdei olam. Who will save us from those who wish to burn down the world? Sounds very much like what's going on today. Those who are ready to, in order to have their will met, to perhaps take over Ukraine, or perhaps to take over Taiwan, or perhaps South Korea, or perhaps those who wish to overrun Israel. They all want and are willing to burn down the world. But those who wish to burn down the world, they're afraid. Who is protected? Who is not afraid, says the Pasuk. Those who go in righteous ways, those who speak straightly. They're not interested in stealing, they're not interested in unearned booty. They shake off their hands. They're not interested in receiving any kind of sheikhad, any kind of bribe. Closing their ears to hear anyone who might require being killed. Who's this righteous individual the Pasuk is talking about, who goes in the straight way? So the Parsha Pshat, the Psukim it's talking about Chizkiyahu hamelech. He was a straight person. He was a great person. He was a tzaddik. He wasn't interested if there was someone who had done wrong, and maybe he was even liable for death. He avoided hearing it. He was Michael. He forgave them, perhaps that they had been married by Malchus. They weren't sufficiently reverent of his kingship. He didn't want to hear about it. They closed their eyes from seeing anything bad. So, and the Midrash is going to say that not only is it true of Chizkiyahu, it's amazing how the Midrash will often give us a moment, talk about a time. We spoke about this previously when it came to Sukkahs and in the times of the Midbar, and we remember that, and it's going to be in the future too. So here also, there's like a moment in time, which is Chizkiyahu, who had the potential to be Moshiach, and we're going to throw back the Psukim to be talking about Avraham Avinu, to be talking about Abraham, and we're going to throw it forward to be talking about Moshiach. Because all these ideas, all these points in time are connected. But this is the difference between who's afraid and who's not afraid. Who's afraid of being destroyed? Those who are doing wrong. Who's afraid, wondering, trembling, what's going to be the reward, as the Midrash will say? That's those who are doing what's right. This king, and as we'll see, Avraham also, and perhaps even we, this king is able to rise up above the heavens. He's protected by the great mountains. His bread is given. He has everything he needs. There's water, and it's always there for him, right? In Eretz Yisrael especially, you don't have rain all year round, so you need to either have gathered the rain and keep it in storehouses, or you need to be able to, to find a water source, perhaps under the ground. But this person will have their water, they'll have their bread. Pasuk Zayin says, we're almost done here reading in Yeshaya, Melech v'yofi techzena inecha. The beautiful king you will see. You'll see an amazing king. So there's two different pshatim in which king we're talking about. In the Parsha Pshat, it seems to be talking about Chizkiyahu, hamelech. If you compare him to the king of Ashur, the king of Ashur had a mighty army. He was great. He was powerful. He seemed invincible. But the Melech of Yisrael, the Jewish king, really the Melech of Yehuda, if you could be accurate, Chizkiyahu hamelech, didn't seem to be as powerful. He didn't have as strong of an army. Tirena Eretz Merchakim, even from far off you'll be able to see it. Lipcha yege ema, your heart might be fearful, because you see the contrast between the kings. Aye sever, aye shoikel, aye sever samigdalim. Look at the power of the king of Ashur, the Assyrian king. He has books upon books, counting out all of his soldiers and all of his money, and all of the many towers that he has to protect him. You don't have to worry. You don't have to look at the fearsome king from afar, who seems to be more powerful and have endless legions at his disposal. Look at Zion. Look at Zion. Look at Jerusalem. Look at Chizkiyahu hamelech, the king who resides in Jerusalem. Look at the Beis Hamikdash. Look at the temple. Look at the king whose backing is a spiritual backing. You will see Jerusalem. And this is a powerful prophecy for then, and it's a powerful prophecy for now. Your eyes will see a calm, relaxed city of Jerusalem. It's going to be a tent. And a tent is an impermanent structure, but it's going to be permanent. It's going to be something that the that which holds down the tent, the stakes that are driven into the ground, and the ropes that hold it up, it will never break. Because there, the mighty one, Hashem, is ours. It's a place of rivers flowing. There'll be rivers flowing through Jerusalem. You won't even be able to walk there. There'll be boats flowing. And of course, in the Pashtus, it's a mashal. Everyone will be coming to Jerusalem. Rivers of people will be flowing there. Boats will be bringing people to Jerusalem. Planes will be flying there. Everyone will want to come to the center, to the root, to the place where you can access Hashem. Ki Hashem sheftenu, Hashem echayikenu, Hashem malkeinu, hu yeshienu. Hashem is our judge. Hashem is the one who stamped us. He made us. Hashem is our king. He will save us. Okay, I'm not going to read till the end of the chapter. There's a bit more here, but it's incredibly beautiful. And the Navi is painting for us a picture of the fear and the challenge and the contrast between a king that looks so powerful, hundreds of thousands of ballistic missiles aimed at Yerushalayim. So powerful he looks. Avraham Avinu also had to fight with the 4 kings and the 5 kings to retrieve his nephew Lot. And really to become the powerful king in Eretz Canaan at the time, in the land of Canaan, which is really Eretz Yisrael, of course, as we know. Because that's the psukim, describing the contrast between those who fear their sins, they're afraid of their sins, and those who fear, meaning they're trembling in wait for their reward. And there's a fear and a trembling in a time of judgment. There's a fear and a trembling in a time when destruction is looming, is imminent. As in Avraham Avinu's time, he's praying on behalf of Sodom and Amora. He doesn't want the destruction. He doesn't want God's revelation then to cause such utter destruction to these cities. He cared about them. He's the one who went to save them. He was trying to influence them. Perhaps you could say that Lot was his mole going into Sodom and Amora, trying to have a positive influence on them. He wasn't successful. He was influenced. He wasn't the influencer. Let's see together the Midrash. Pasuk says, those who sinned in Sion, they were afraid. He says we have a mashal. You have two kids who ran away from school. Two little kids who ran away from school. One gets caught. The two of them get caught, and one of them is getting spanked. And the other one perhaps is not as bad of a boy, and he's not going to get spanked. Maybe the father is the principal, we could say, I don't know. One is shaking. He's afraid of what it's going to be his judgment, and the other one is getting spanked. And that's true. We have to be aware that when there's a time of judgment, who's to say that we're not going to be judged negatively? Who's to say? Pasuk refers to the people here as sinners and refers to them as minim. A min means, a choynef. A choynef means someone who flatters, a flatterer. But in this context, it doesn't mean just a flatterer, someone who just like flatters people, but it means someone who is a min. He worships idolatry. Our pasuk teaches us this idea. It's not just talking about a flatterer, but it's talking about somebody who serves idolatry, who denies God's existence. So they're afraid as they see the danger arriving, as they see the danger coming in, they're afraid. He gives us a different mashal. Not just the two little kids who ran away from school, one of them gets spanked, and the other one's afraid what's going to be his punishment. A different idea. You have an arch villain, an arch alistis is a thief. He's the mastermind. He's the mob boss. And he rebelled against the king. Whoever will nab this arch villain, the mob boss, I'm going to give them an incredible amount of honor and a great reward. Okay? So somebody went and grabbed him. Somebody was able to catch this arch mob boss. So they came to the king. They brought the mobster to the king, and the guy who caught him also came in. And the king says, "Look, it's nighttime. We don't do judgments in the nighttime. We'll wait till the morning, and we're going to tell you, the mob boss, what his punishment is going to be, and I'll tell you what exactly the reward is going to be for the one who caught him." So each of them was afraid overnight. Right? They couldn't sleep all night. The one who was in the king's favor, obviously, so he was nervous. What's going to be the reward? Another one was afraid because what's going to be my punishment? It's going to be the same thing in the future. As the day of judgment comes, as the moment when it becomes clear what's going on and where things are headed. So there's going to be two different people, two sets of people. Those who are on the side of Hashem, those who have done what's right, the Jewish people, and the idol worshippers, those who are on the side of evil. Both of them will be afraid. Both of them will be shaking. The pasuk refers to this. Another pasuk in Hosea. Pasuk describes how the Jewish people will be afraid, but the fear will have to do with what's going to be the amazing good that Hashem wants to give us. Our pasuk, which refers to the fear of those who do sins, is referring to the Oidei Chachamim, those who deny Hashem. So the Oidei Chachamim, the non-Jews, will be afraid what's going to be their punishment, and the Jews will be shaking as far as what's going to be our reward. We referred to these evil people as the Melech Olam, the ones who burned down the world, as we said before. Why are they referred to in that way? Because these people, in a moment, if they could get away with it, if Hashem would allow it to happen, they could destroy the world in a moment. Which is very interesting language. I actually find there's a Gemara, I forget where it is, but I remember seeing it and being very blown away by it. It refers to Germania, which is Germania, the Germans, and says they come from Edom, they come from Esau, and they in a moment could destroy the world if they were given permission. So that's why they're referred to as Melech Olam, as those who burn down the world. Okay, so that's the picture of the future. It's coming. Like, let's be aware of it. Let's be aware of it. We need to make sure that our pachad, our fear, will be one of what's the reward. We need to be like these people, and we're going to see now this is who Avraham was and who we need to emulate. This is who Chizkiyahu hamelech was. Excuse me. Avraham. It says that who is the one who gets rewarded? Who is the one who is good and who is raised up? The one who goes with righteousness. This is Avraham. He was somebody, the verse tells us, would keep the way of Hashem to do tzedek and mishpat, to do righteousness and judgments. The pasuk here in Yeshaya talks about the fact that he speaks straight. In reference to Avraham Avinu, to Abraham, he's referred to as someone who is straight, who is loved. Or it could be that it's saying, those who are straight love you, Hashem. Pasuk refers to those who hate stealing, hate getting something that's not theirs. Avraham was like this. When he won the war, King of Sodom said, take the rechush, take all of the booty, and I'll take the people. And Avraham said, I'm not interested, not in one drop of the booty, not even a shoelace. So he was someone who wasn't interested in taking something that he didn't want, that wasn't his. Pasuk here in Yeshaya talks about the fact that who's the one who's not afraid? Who's the one who is raised up? Who is the king? Someone who is not interested in taking any bribery. This is Avraham. He said, I raise up my hand. I'm not interested. Not interested in anything but Hashem. In the pasuk says, this person, this king, Chizkiyahu, in the Parsha Pshat, and our Midrash is talking about Avraham, and also we can see the implication is that it's talking about us in the future. This person is raised up to the highest heavens. It says about Avraham, that he was raised up above the highest point in the heaven, which means that he was raised above nature, right? The constellations classically refer to the fact that there's a certain order that Hashem created. He guides the world through the constellations. But he was raised up above that. He ain't Mazel Yisrael. When we do what's right, the Jewish people don't have Mazel. We are not affected by the astrology, by the constellations, by the forces of nature. And Avraham was like that. He was raised up above. So Hashem said, look down towards the heavens. The word habet, which means to look. The word look, the word habet means look down. So he was above the heavens. But amazing thing. Pasuk refers to the great mountains that protect him. Says the Midrash is referring to the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of Hashem's glory that protect the Jewish people. Protected us then. As we saw, you're talking about Sukkot, Hashem is going to protect us in the future with these clouds. Perhaps they're manifesting as the Iron Dome system. We said the bread is given. He has all the water he needs. Avraham Avinu was this kind of person that he had plentiful water. Yukach nama atmaim. He says to the angels, take some water. There's plenty for you to drink. And the last point here in the pasuk is melech v'yofi techazena einecha. You will see this beautiful king. So we said in the Parsha Podcast, it means Chizkiyahu, the beautiful king. He's really, we could say, a reflection of Hashem. He's imbued with spirituality, with divine protection, because he is just a reflection of God in the world. But he sees, another pshat is that he sees Hashem the king. He sees him. He looks at Hashem, which means that he's divinely inspired. Think of Moshe Rabbeinu shining out. His face was shining with the light of spirituality after being up there for 40 days and 40 nights on Har Sinai. Vayera, I love Hashem. The pasuk says about Avraham, Hashem appeared to him. Hashem appeared to him. In all of these ways, we see that Avraham, Chizkiyahu, and we potentially, when we're looking at Hashem, when Hashem appears to us, when we're doing all of these things, when we're seeking justice, when we're seeking to do what's right, when we're seeking Hashem's will, when we're recognizing that we only have exactly what we need. Everything we have is what we need. I don't need to take anything from anybody else. I don't need a sheikh. I don't need any bribes. I'm not interested in bribes. I'm not interested in anyone telling me how to earn my livelihood better. I want it to come directly from Hashem. I'm raised up. We stand above. We stand above all the constellations, all of the natural world. We all have that potential. We learn it from Avraham. We see that he was like that. In that moment of incredible, cataclysmic, earth-shattering, world-changing events, the destruction of Sodom happens, they had to fear. Chizkiyahu hamelech didn't have to fear. Avraham didn't have to fear. The only fear was, what's going to be the reward? What's it going to look like? What is it going to look like as the coming months proceed, as Am Yisrael is finally given permission to do what we need to do to push back and destroy our enemies? What's it going to look like? And those who sin, they need to be afraid. And even we need to be afraid and say, are we living up? Are we being the kind of people who Hashem is going to redeem? That in a time of judgment will be judged for good. That's the question we need to ask ourselves. And that's what I take out of this Midrash. It's an incredible lesson. Who's afraid in Yerushalayim? Who's afraid in the people of Israel? Only those who are sinning. Who's afraid amongst the nations of the world? Only those who are defying Hashem's will. Those who are seeking to do Hashem's will. Those who are seeking honestly to do that which is right and that which is correct. The only thing we need to be afraid of is, what's the reward going to look like? How will the Beis HaMikdash be built? What's it going to look like? How is it going to happen? How will it come down in fire? Or maybe how will we ourselves build it? How will we start to build it and Hashem perhaps sends it down from above as well? What's it going to look like? That's the thing that we have to fear. I want to bless you and ask you to bless me. Hashem should help us to take this message to heart, to have the right kind of fear, to have the right kind of re'ada. You should be zeiche to see the fall of Sodom and Amora in our times. We should be zeiche. We should merit to see that. We should merit to see the rising of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the people who remember their forefathers and strive to go in their ways. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.